Let's turn to the campaign and see what the two major parties were up to today. Prime Minister back in North Queensland, visiting key marginals, making a headland speech. It was a great speech today, pitched to regional Australia. For Labor, with their leader still out of action until he's released from isolation tomorrow night, we're told, we had another gaggle of frontbenchers lead the charge. For their update, let's bring in Gabriella Power with the Prime Minister in Cairns. And Julia Bradley joins us now for the first time with the Labor team in Sydney. Well, Gabriella, you're back in Queensland again, and that tells me there's a very determined push by the coalition to shore up seats they hold. And so the PM's big speech today, what can you tell us?
Peter, the Prime Minister is in Cairns right now, but he spent the day in Rockhampton where he was spruiking his election promise to create more jobs. He's promising to create 450,000 jobs in regional Australia over the next 5 years. And this is, of course, part of his commitment to create 1.3 million jobs in Australia by 2027. He was joined by Deputy Prime Minister Barnaby Joyce and LNP candidate for Capricornia Michelle Landry. They made that speech at the Leagues Club with a focus on fixing the divide between regional Australia and the cities. But the big question, Peter, is will this message cut through to voters, especially with the unemployment rate at an all-time low? I was speaking to voters out in Rockhampton. Many of them were not engaging with the campaign and say that they are fed up with the political infighting. Of course, the news the Prime Minister couldn't escape today was the inflation rate rise to 5.1%. The Prime Minister made a few remarks when he touched down here in Cairns this afternoon about this, trying to assure voters that the government is doing a good job when it comes to addressing the rising cost of living pressures, with millions of Australians set to receive the $250 cash payment as early as tomorrow. So the Prime Minister, he's spending the night here in Cairns. It's likely there'll be a local announcement made here tomorrow as he targets the seat of Leichhardt. The Liberals hold this seat by a margin of 4.2%. So it is marginal. But of course, the Prime Minister, it's likely, will not be able to avoid questions of the cost of living pressures and the inflation, Peter.
Yeah, the incumbent in that seat is Warren Inch. He's been in Parliament about 100 years. He's a very savvy campaigner. But I tell you, they must think Leichhardt's in trouble because it seems like the PM's been in Cairns every second day. Jules, let's go to you now. You're in Canberra. You're in Sydney now, but you were in Canberra. And today we had three of the Treasury shadows out there, all about economic commitments and budget savings and more. I suspect this was timed, given we know Albanese's out of jail tomorrow. It feels like it was time to get this announcement out so he didn't have to be there and they didn't risk any further economic slip-ups. What can you tell us?
And Peter, also the timing of it, it was scheduled to be just after that announcement about the national inflation rate rise. Sharply rose, as you said, up to 5.1%. from 3.1%. So the timing of that, this long-awaited Labor budget plan, it was released shortly after that figure came through. Now, as you said, Peter, we are here in Sydney. We just touched down here just a couple of moments ago. Earlier today, the Labor campaign was also here in Sydney, but in Sydney's west. There was a stop at a childcare centre among a couple of Labor MPs, but the real campaign announcement, as you say, didn't come until the campaign made its way to Canberra. So this long-awaited budget plan was announced. It's a three-point plan. The first part of that is all about cracking down on tax evasion. The Labor Party want to close loopholes being used by multinational corporations, and they believe that this plan will help them raise about $1.9 billion over 4 years from 2023. And the second point is all about cracking down on consultancy spending, and then it is also about trimming what they believe is wasteful spending. But there is a lot more to be said on this from Labor. We're still waiting to hear all the details on that particular point. I did ask the Labor Party what they think their desire to increase wages will do to inflationary pressure as well. But as you say, we are expecting Anthony Albanese to join the Labor campaign trail by the end of the week when the campaign is set to head to Western Australia, Peter.
Yeah, pretty skinny on the detail. Lots of noise today, Julia, but skinny on the detail. I'm still going through some of the papers that were released, but I'll I'll have an update on that tomorrow. Thank you, Gabriella. Thank you, Julia.